what's happening? I'm Tommy, and you are on The Love Boat. And we're going to be talking about Diddy because there's actually something worth talking about. This isn't the filler content that often happens. This is actually the real deal. I'm not going to shout out hello to everybody. Sorry. But if I get into this quicker, more than likely the people that catch this from the beginning will actually watch it, as a lot of people don't know you guys. Maybe I'll do it at the end, but we want to get right into the Diddy stuff. I showed everybody the other day how you can look up Mr. Combs and see if he has been transferred within the federal system. It has not shown up yet that he has been transferred. However, if you know what you're doing and you want to go check via other yards and other ways to look it up, he did get shipped. This is not a rumor. So if you've been looking it up, sometimes it'll take 24 to 48 hours to have the computer update, which means a couple of other things. It means that his PAC number doesn't work at where he is. He can't get on the computer. He can't do any of those fun things until that updates, because right now the BOP still shows him as being in MDC Brooklyn, but he is not. And he got what he wanted. He was sent to Fort Dix. Now, before everybody starts bumming out about this, let's talk about reality, right? So if you watched the trial at all, and granted you watch people talk about the trial, but if you read the transcripts, what happened when Arun Subramanian did his sentencing, he had the ability, and I've said this before, he has the ability to take into account things that he was not found guilty of. So Sean Combs beat the racketeering charges. Now, the racketeering charges had a lot of violence and a lot of things that we all kind of associate now with Diddy. The Mann Act stuff does not. All that is that he paid people to go across state lines for the purpose of pandering, right? Paying them for sex. And this is a crime that, in theory, you can go to RDAP. You can go to the residential drug abuse program, and in theory, you can get a year off of your sentence. And people are going to report this because I've been watching him do it all day. Now that he's going there, he gets a year off of his sentence. It's not quite that simple. In fact, why is he eligible for RDAP? So from a BOP convict standpoint, the reason he's eligible for RDAP has to be that his case demonstrated that he has a very serious drug problem, right? It has to show up in your paperwork or your pre-sentence investigation. Arun Subramanian made reference to the PSI, the pre-sentence investigation. You may have heard it called a PSR. Sometimes it's called a pre-sentence report. It's the same thing. It's the difference between state and federal. Nevertheless, his pre-sentence report says a lot of stuff in there that isn't part of the trial. However, that's what they're going to look at when he goes to RDAP. And there are absolute stone cold facts in there, like he beat the crap out of Cassie. All of these things that he may have been found not guilty of can be brought in. So are you excluded from getting early release based on the Mann Act? You are not. But it is on a case-by-case basis, and they're going to look back at the things that were brought up in your trial. Doesn't mean that, so you beat that, you would think, well, then you're not allowed to bring any of that up. Doesn't work that way. It really doesn't, especially the Cassie video, because this is a fact. If there is violence attached to your charges, then you're probably not getting the year off of your sentence. All of the people that you were hearing reporting on this are saying, since there wasn't a child involved in this, he's eligible for RDAP. Yeah, if you don't have a child sex crime, you are allowed to be in RDAP. That doesn't mean you're going to get the time off for RDAP. It's two very different things. None of my supervisors would have allowed him into RDAP. Not right away anyway. You have to do a basic drug education course first and prove you're not just trying to get time off, says Kristen Melinda. And that's a fact. And dovetails beautifully into what I was about to say. Everybody that goes to prison who they document has a problem in the PSI with drugs. Now, Diddy's drug problem is thick in the PSI, which is why he's allowed into RDAP. Because the Mann Act doesn't show any drugs. He wasn't in there for dealing drugs. He wasn't in there for doing drugs. Has nothing to do with his case. But the PSI talks about how bad his drug use has been. It also talks about abuse of women. So this is going to be a problem for him. But she's right. You have to do what's called a 40-hour basic drug education. Everybody has to do it. And you know the real kicker? You got to do it on every yard you go to. Honestly, like I have done it probably 8 times. And in theory, you're only supposed to do it once per sentence. I did 2 federal rips, but you can get to the next yard and they go, yeah, it didn't come in, so you just have to show up. The paperwork didn't arrive here, which is amazing because you would think it would be emailed or maybe sent over in a file, but they actually do send your paperwork, your thick jacket, and all of that goes over. But you're going to have to go in and do your 40-hour drug program. And 40 hours doesn't sound like much, but if you're only going in for a couple of hours each time, it takes a long time to do that 40-hour. There's also a waiting list at every place I have ever been to get into RDAP. I was supposed to get time off for RDAP. The lawyers told me, no problem, guaranteed, you're getting time off for RDAP. Your crime isn't violent. I got there, entered the RDAP program, sat down for my first meeting with my counselor, who said to me, you're in here for bank robbery. I said, yeah. She said, bank robbery is a violent crime. I said, nobody was injured, and I wasn't even at the bank. I'm accused of a crime of helping set up a bank robbery, right? Conspiracy to commit. And she said, yeah, no, it doesn't matter. You're a violent bank robber, that's it. And the fellas then go, you need to leave. Now, I was leaving anyway. If I wasn't getting the time off, the RDAP program is hard to do, right? There aren't guys in there gambling. There aren't guys in there doing drugs. There aren't guys in there drinking, because it is very closely watched. There are guys in there fighting, because there's a lot of guys that have been on substances their entire life, and now they're actually going to try to get off of those substances long enough to get a year off of their sentence. Here's another thing that you're not going to hear anybody talk about, but Diddy's going to be in hell, even worse, if by some chance they allow him to do this and get the year off. You go, oh man, a year off of my sentence. It's not a year off of your sentence. In fact, if you look on somebody's, if you look somebody up on BOP.gov, and they got out in 2020, but they didn't get out of a halfway house and done with all that paper until 2022, that's when it says you left prison, because you are still property of the Bureau of Prisons until you're done with everything they set up for you. Now, if you get a year off for RDAP, you're going to go do more RDAP on the street, and you're going to do ungodly amounts of it. Sean Combs is going to be going to drug programs 3 and 4 times a week. They are vicious. And then on top of the 3 to 4 times a week that you go, they want you to do 90 meetings in 90 days. That's absolutely what they're going to ask him to do, which means that on top of these meetings that you're going to, he's going to have to go to Narcotics Anonymous in some open forum like you would go anywhere else in the US, and you're going to have to do 90 of them in your first 90 days out. Nobody can pull this off. I mean, it's almost impossible to do. They set you up for failure is what happens. And I only saw one person ever get it. And the entire time I was in, I only saw one person get an entire year off for RDAP. And they made it out about 60 days before they ended up getting sent back to prison. It's setting people up for failure unless you really have just completely turned your life around. If you're 100% done and you're not doing anything wrong, you're probably set. But that's a difficult thing to do. Oh yeah, it's hard to get a job while doing the 90 meetings in 90 days thing. It's almost impossible to. And you have to tell the people that you're working for or with, I got to do 3 meetings a week and I got to do 90 meetings in the first 90 days. But if you can work around that, you can hire me. Now, Diddy's not going to have to worry about that, but he still is going to have to find some kind of gainful employment because, I mean, I guess he could sweep up at Bad Boy, but what he did at Bad Boy Records was to manage people. Part of the terms of his probation is he is never going to be in a management position above someone where he can control someone's career or any of these things. Why? Because the PSI says that this is an absolute predator. This is a guy where if you give him the ability to say your success is based on me telling you that you're going to be successful, he's going to make you get on your knees. And I don't mean begging for a job. You know what I mean, right? This is a guy who has demonstrated the fact that he's a predator. And that is all throughout his pre-sentence investigation. Right? That's just the reality of it. And the PSI is tough because, again, they don't limit it to asking you questions about the crimes. When you sit down for your pre-sentence investigation, and I've done 2 of them, the probation officer can say, what was the name of the girl you dated in high school? When was the first time you got a job? How many jobs have you been fired from? And they're asking you questions they know the answers to. Right? They did a ton of research before they come in there. So if you think, well, I'm just going to go in there and slick these people because I'm a pretty slick guy. I mean, Diddy's one of those people. It doesn't work that way. Now, your attorney sits in there with you and your attorney can say, I don't want you to answer that. And then your attorney and the probation officer will argue about stuff. But it's he's got a really, really ugly pre-sentence report. And that ugly pre-sentence report is going to follow him for the entire time that he's in prison. So for things like the ability to get time off, they don't like letting people who are predators get out early because if they do, really bad things tend to happen, right? Those people can then go and violate in some way, and it makes politicians, it makes the BOP, it makes the prosecutors, everyone looks bad if somebody like Diddy gets out and then does the same thing while he should have been in prison. So all the people that are telling you, well, now we know he's getting out 12 months early because he's going to do RDAP. And then on top of that 12 months, he's going to get 6 months of halfway house or whatever. These are pipe dreams, folks. It doesn't happen in the BOP. Reese, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. Hope you're feeling a little better. This is the kind of stuff that people are going to talk about, but is absolutely not going to be a reality. I'm sorry, it's just not. Especially with his pre-sentence report. I hope they give him RDAP. I hope he gets the time off for his sentence. Normally, in the yards I've been on, the waiting list to get into RDAP, if it's a short one, is 4 to 6 months, right? But they don't just drop people in whenever. They usually do it so that you're coming in to start RDAP with a class of other people that are coming in to start RDAP. Because when you sit in groups, everyone's supposed to be doing the same assignment. So a person can't come in when the group is on the 8th chapter and just start from scratch. That doesn't work. Man, this computer is starting to bother me again. Did this to you, Johnny Scuttle?
It did.
This thing could end up going off of the balcony. It's unfortunate that this is where we're at, but it kind of chaps my backside. So the reality is he's going to Fort Dix. That's where he just ended up. He was moved there. He arrived at Fort Dix at about 4:30 in the morning. I want to know what Diddy actually has in his cell. He doesn't have a cell. He is going to Fort Dix, and Fort Dix has dorm living. So it's going to be like where he just was. But the difference is going to be where he was at MDC Brooklyn. He was in a 20-man pod. That's what they call it, right? It's dorm style. There would be 10 bunk beds, and you don't have anything other than your bunk bed. There's a little thing you can slide under your bed that has, paperwork or any of those things, because it's not. Mike Bragg says, do you think he'll be in general population? Yeah, realistically, Mike, that's how he's going to start, unless he asks for protective custody. If he asks for protective custody, he's not going to probably get that at Fort Dix, which would mean getting shipped. I think he's going to probably try to ride out GP as long as he can. And in light of the fact that this is going to feel very similar to where he just was, I think it would take a week or so before he starts realizing this isn't the same spot. The difference is where he was, the door does not get locked, right? When we're at MDC Brooklyn, the door is locked. No one can get in at you. You can't get out. You might watch other people walk by the front of your dorm, but there's no chance whatsoever that those people can get at you. You can't go talk to them. He's going to be at a prison that has hundreds of men. It could have upwards of 1,000, right? Depending on how full it is. And he's going to have a yard to go to. The guys in there have a locker. So it's not quite, even though it's dorms, they usually put them into pods. So inside this huge dorm, the lockers that you get in the BOP will make walls of sorts, right? So he could be in a 4-man pod, right? Or he could be in an 8-man pod where they have 4 bunks, but usually it's like 4 to 8 guys to a pod. So it's not a cell because you can't shut the door or do anything like that, but people don't come into a pod without knocking. That's my understanding. It's kind of a respect thing. You don't just walk into someone else's pod. However, if somebody's visiting another person in there, he will ask for protective custody because Sean Combs is a wussy. Well, I think that there's a decent chance of that. And a lot of the people in the world that pretend to be really hard, like the guy I went over last night, right? He calls himself a shot caller, and his programs that he sells are called GP, as in general population. But he doesn't go to general population. He's a guy that did all of his time on a special needs yard. So I think that there's a chance we could see the same thing happen with Diddy. Yeah, my mouse is all screwed up. We need a new computer. On the bright side, at least I'm in South America where that should be really easy to do. Your cat. I blame your cat. So yeah, he was already in a pod style, but he was in a pod style for people who are in protective custody. Now he's going to be on a open yard pod style. So people can come in and out. And when he goes to eat, he's not going to be eating in the pod. So for the last, what has he been there since? So about a year and a half, 15 months, something like that. The entire time he's been there, they bring the food to them. Those guys don't leave that pod for anything other than programming. And because they're in protective custody, they don't go to programs with anybody that's not in protective custody. You know, there may be a different PC unit, and they're allowed to bring those guys together, but they really isolate the PC guys from the guys in general population. Last night at 4:30 in the morning, he arrived there. And you may think, well, you got to go in and go to sleep. But that process of getting, you hit and you go to what's called R&R. And everybody says that means different things, but it is receiving and release. is what the R&R stands for according to the BOP. Fellas have a bunch of different nicknames and things for it, but R&R is where you first walk into prison, and it's where you walk out if you're going home or going to another yard. And that process they got to do for every single person that comes on the bus. There may be a chance that that Diddy went there with no one else. I think that there's a possibility of that. Even if that's the case, it'd probably take him 2 hours, 3 hours to get through the process. If he went with even 5 or 6 guys, it'll take him all day. If you show up with 18, it will take you, you would not believe how long you sit in there, right? They'll feed you 2 meals while you're in there waiting to get taken out. Now, that would be a very uncomfortable process for Diddy. The whole world knows that this guy was in protective custody. The one thing that he's got going for him is he was in protective custody with famous people, and he can say, they put me in PC against my will. I wanted to go into general population. He can work that and probably have people believe him, especially if he's entering a prison right now and going into GP, that he might get a pass on that, right? He might not. It just depends on the fellas. This is a yard that also has a warden that is famously harsh. And I don't think he's the kind of warden that is going to put up with the BS of having somebody as famous as Diddy. Nothing is worse than having somebody famous in a prison, right? For any reason. Famous people cause problems. The inmates don't like them, right? No. But thank you. You said Diddy would not go to a camp. Fort Dix is a camp. Actually, Audrey, it is not. There is a satellite camp that is there. He's not at that. He is going to be behind barbed wire that's coiled. He can't go to a camp. He's not at a camp. There's a camp there. Victorville is the nastiest prison in the BOP. It has a camp, right? Lewisburg, one of the nastiest prisons in the BOP. It has a camp. The Supermax facility at ADX, the Administrative Detention Center in Florence, Colorado. It also has across the street from it a Supermax that is not the ADX, the Administrative Detention Center Supermax, just a different form of Supermax. They have a camp. Camps are there to take care of prisons. So if Fort Dix has a riot, what do? Because the guys that cook are inmates. The guys that clean are inmates. The guys that fix stuff are inmates. They don't have cops cooking, right? These are the prisons run because people get paid to run them, and they're inmates. So in really big yards, they have a satellite camp. So if a riot breaks out or whatever, the campers come in to cook. The campers come in to do cleaning and all of that stuff. The campers have the ability to get in a van and drive away and go pick up stuff in town. When you get out of prison, the campers drive you to the airport. It is a completely different place than where Sean Combs is, Audrey, and I assure you, he is not in a camp, right? There is no chance on God's green earth with his ability to, with what he has in his pre-sentence report, with violence and all that, no way is he going to a camp. Now, he went to an FCI low, which I'm a little shocked about, but you have to remember what the guy was convicted of. He was convicted of 2 violations of the Mann Act. So it's not a shocker. If he had been convicted of any of the stuff that he was charged with on the racketeering stuff, then he would have been at a USP. His points would have been through the roof, right? But these aren't violent crimes. He's basically charged with hiring a hooker, but flying the hooker across state lines. Whether that hooker's a man or a woman doesn't matter. If you're paying someone to go across state lines for the purpose of sex, that is a violation of the Mann Act. So is this lower custody? Yeah, anytime there's a dorm, you're looking at lower custody. However, you're also looking at potential for unbelievable violence. If you're in a setting where you have a cell at 9 o'clock at night, when they shut that cell, you don't have a lot to worry about except your cellmate. When you're in a dorm, there isn't a bathroom in your pod, which means if you get up at Constantine, thank you. If you get up in the, we call it razor wire. If you get up in the middle of the night and you need to take a leak, you have to leave your pod. You got to walk all the way through the unit down to wherever the bathrooms are, use it and come back. So people wander around these things all night long. People watch TV sometimes, depending on who the cops are that are on, they can let you watch TV till 3 in the morning. They have TV rooms that are set up. So this is an odd situation. There's a lot of rumors that he's already calling people and saying that people there don't like him. I can't back any of that stuff up. They're great videos. I'm sure they're getting a lot of views. I don't know how people are finding that stuff out. But I definitely could find out that he was shipped, and that's legit. He got there at 4:30 in the morning. He is at Fort Dix. He is not at the camp at Fort Dix. The number of facilities in the BOP that have every prison you can think of at it. And what I mean by that is like, I was at the one in Florence, Colorado. I was in the maximum security prison there, the penitentiary. They had 2 FCIs, right? And they had a camp at Victorville. It's even bigger. There's a female camp. There's a guy's camp. There's all kinds of people doing time. Florida does it near Coleman. A lot of these prisons have camps, right? The camps are there, they call them satellite camps. They're there to do the work in case the prison proper gets locked down. Camps don't get locked down very often. Those are people that are trusted so much that they don't put a fence around it. They can walk away if they want. And if that sounds crazy to you, it gives you an idea of just how much you got to trust somebody before you put them into a camp, right? Because you certainly don't put somebody that has the kind of stuff that Diddy has been accused of, because it's going to end up ruining somebody's career when that idiot, you know what? Boy, oh boy, man, nothing like needing a new computer and being in a foreign country where it's going to be hard to buy. But he's not at a camp. I assure you, he is not at a camp, right? There is a camp there, man. There's absolutely a camp there, but it's going to be difficult for people to find someplace in the BOP, especially a decent sized yard that doesn't have a camp. It's always funny. No, he is not at a camp. I'm sorry. He's not at a camp. I love you guys. He's not at a camp. He is at an FCI, Federal Correction Institution, not a camp. It is, and I can't read the comments anymore. That's a wrap because lost the comments. No, it's just how it goes. This is so. I don't know how you got through this, bro. I really don't. This is. Bear with me for 1 second, people. It just goes. I mean,
the bottom thing that says, you get that bottom thing, it goes to the bottom automatically.
Well, so where is he? He is right now. He is at Fort Dix, but he is not at the camp at Fort Dix. He is at the low, right? So a low FCI doesn't mean there's not. He is behind a wall. He has to deal with everything that anyone at any other FCI has to deal with. The only difference is that he's not going to be. It's not cells. He's at dorm living, and dorm living. I'll tell you something. So the only place I ever did dorm living was at a facility in Nevada that they call Pahrump. It's a transfer center for the West Coast. And the first thing that I would do as soon as I got there, you know, they would say is, do you have problems living with anybody? And I would list off every single gang I could come up with, because all I wanted was to be put in a cell. Their dorm living is hell on earth. Guys make noise all night long. They do things that just make it really, really difficult to do time. Dorms suck. Having the privacy of your own little box, even if that box is 8 feet wide and 14 feet deep, gives you a little bit of opportunity to live a life that you kind of design. You thought he would still stay in protective custody. Well, they don't take you from where he's at and drop you in protective custody. Everybody gets a shot at walking out on the yard. And what happened was, when he got there, he sat down with SIS, right? That's like the FBI inside. They just investigate things and get people in trouble. But they sat him down, and the head of security, the head of SIS, said to him that, like they do to every other inmate that comes through, have you ever worked with law enforcement? Have you ever ratted on a gang? Do you have any enemies within the system? And when they get through with all that, they say, is there any reason you don't think you can make it in protective custody? Now, if he was at Victorville, you know, when you arrive at Victorville, 25 guys show up and 5 guys walk out to the yard, and the rest of them go to the shoe and go, I'm not going out there. I mean, they try to scare you. They say they're going to be, people get stabbed here. There's drugs everywhere. This is a violent yard. The politics, the whites hate the blacks hate the whites, blah, blah, blah. And they scare everybody. They try to get you to say, I can't do this. I think he's probably going to have to pay for his protection. I think that that's a reality. They're going to look at this guy like an ATM machine, right? They're definitely going to look at this guy like an ATM machine. And there are going to be people pressing up on him. This yard has had riots. This yard has had melees. This is not a soft yard. It may have dorms, but dorms cause way more problems than cells do. If you are cell living, you have to get along with one dude really well, and that's your cellmate. And you don't have to be best friends with him. You just have to have a routine where if you start getting ready in the morning at 5 o'clock, he doesn't start getting ready until 6, because there's not enough room on the floor for 2 people, right? There's no chance in hell that you guys can be doing it at the same time. And it requires a little bit of teamwork. it's going to be really bad in a dorm. How long do you think he will be in there before he gets attacked somehow? You know, if he can start paying instantly, the problem is this. Everybody goes, well, he's got enough money. How do you get money to inmates? For real. So let's say there are 8 guys he has to pay off. How is he going to get that money to them? Because if he calls up on the phone and he goes, hey, Justin, I want you to send money to this person, and this person, they're going to walk into the unit about 20 minutes later and go, you, come here. And he's going to get out. They're going to take his phone away. They're going to take away his store, not for a long time, probably 30 days on the first offense. And they probably won't take good time the first offense. If they do, they'll take 7 days. And that may not sound like a lot, but when you get, 54 days a year or 58 days a year for good time, losing 7 of them is a kick in the junk. It really is. And it starts the paper trail of you're a loser. So he can't do that. He has to figure out a way to make a call to the street. Now, he can do that with a cell phone, but the BOP is not like the state. They actually have machines they walk around with at night to see if there are signals being emitted from cell phones. And I got in trouble for the cell phone thing. It's almost impossible. You can get them in there. It's just very difficult to use them. But he may be able to get a cell phone and borrow it for periods of time. It's a little harder to get away with things in a dorm setting versus a cell setting. Nobody trying to be his friend. It's not jail, it's prison. Correct. And they're going to be pissed off because everybody has a program that they do every day, right? Inside of prison, the fellows call it programming, and there's things that you do day in, day out. And if anything interrupts that at all, they tend to get angry. Sean Combs coming into a unit is going to disrupt everything that is going on in that unit. There are going to be guys talking about it all the time, and there are people on the yard that just don't like that. It's definitely not going to be like where he just was, right? There were 20 people that had access to him, 19 people other than himself, right? A 20-man unit. Now there are 800 people. When he goes to eat chow, he has to walk out of that building and into a chow hall. The chow hall is going to have 120 to 250 guys in there eating, because you come out by unit and usually 2 units at a time. So there'll be about 250 people in the chow hall. That's frightening. First time you walk into a chow hall, and I didn't walk in there famous, with bad paperwork. This dude, everybody in the world thinks Diddy's worse than he is. And I'm not saying he's not a lowlife, but the things that have been said about him are so much worse than a lot of the truth. Is he allowed to have a cell phone at Fort Dix? No, no one in the BOP is allowed to have a cell phone. Absolutely not. No, he is at a low security prison. And all that means, if you looked at a low security prison from the outside and you looked at a medium, and I've done a ton of time at medium, facilities, FCIs. The only difference is it's such an old place. And Fort Dix was at one time a fort, right? It was a military installation. So it still has the military bunks that were set up for when he went in. The low just means there are a lot more programs. However, because of his pre-sentence investigation, there aren't a lot of those programs that are going to be available to him in terms of getting time off of his sentence. The First Step Act is great, but in every single one of those situations, if your PSI says you're a dangerous piece of crap or you're somebody that victimizes people, they don't like giving you time off. I don't see this guy not getting into some fights. Even people that don't have anything wrong or people that aren't screw-ups get into fights. Prison is a very difficult place. Diane, how are you? I'll say hi. The advantage person with his record would not be in a low... No, you're wrong. You're wrong. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful in this 2025 at all. I promise you I'm not. But his record right now, the only thing he's been convicted of is 2 violations of the Mann Act. Now, that doesn't mean the BOP can't take into account for programming and things like that. But they develop where you're going to go to prison based on what they call yard points. So they're going to look back through his criminal history, and he doesn't have one. Granted, he was accused of shooting someone at a nightclub, but he wasn't convicted of it, right? There's all of these accusations, and he has civil cases, but the only thing Sean Combs has been convicted of are 2 counts of flying hookers across state lines to have sex with them, right? Violations of the Mann Act. So the low security thing, and I'm telling you folks, if you think it's a benefit, then you haven't done time in a dorm. Ask any convict what it's like to do time in dorms. You're in a gymnasium with hundreds of people in it, and It sucks, man. It sucks. You know, I knew guys that were the least racist people on the planet, that every time they go to one of those facilities, they'd go, I don't get along with the black guys, because they want to be sent to a cell, right? The last thing in the world you want is to be in a dorm. The very first time I ever went to prison was in a state facility. And when I got in there, you did a fish tank. It was like 60 days of lockdown. You only get out 15 minutes every other day. Then they give you your big foot locker and they send you off. And I went in and it was a dorm. There were 14 guys in the dorm. Every one of them had their own television set, right? So volume issues. There were fights nonstop. I mean, nonstop. And the first time I met with a counselor, she said, how are you doing in there? I said, I hate it. I hate it. And she said, well, I can put you in line for the drug program. It will take, X number of weeks or whatever. And I talked to a guy in the yard. He's like, is there anybody in the dorm you absolutely hate? I said, there is. He said, punch him in the face. They're going to get you out of there and they're going to put you into cells. The only people that get to live in those facilities have not done anything wrong in the BOP. I don't see Sean Combs making it, because the way it tends to work is, if I punch you in the face, there's only two things that are going to happen. One, you try to defend yourself, in which case you get the same write-up I get. The shot is a 100 series for you and for me. Or you just let me beat the bark off of you, drop into the fetal position, right, and sort of protect your head, and in which case you probably will not get charged, but they're going to ask you to tell them what the guy did. And if you say anything other than, honestly, man, after the first fight, first punch, I didn't see anything, I don't even know who did it, that's what you got to say as a convict. As messed up as that is, you can't even say, hey, man, he hit me first. Say that in front of the fellas, you're a rat. It is a very difficult thing to navigate the Bureau of Prisons, or any prison, and the rules, because nobody tells you them until you break them. You walk around and you see two guys in the corner getting ready to fight, and every human being in the world goes like this and stares at them. The fellas call that dry snitching. If you're looking at somebody that's doing something wrong, right, then you're bringing attention to those people, and they'll beat the crap out of you for it. Ear hustling, right? If somebody's sitting and talking to someone else and you just sort of sit to listen for a second, they just assume you're listening to rat and you're going to get beat up. And these rules don't get explained to you until you mess them up. Walk through the wrong section, right? There's a television that has like 5 chairs and a table set up for it, and it's a black TV section. They're watching whatever they want. The whites have their own TVs. The Mexicans have their own TVs. If you walk through their section, they're going to come over and go, you got to take care of your boy. He just walked through our section. And your own people are going to beat you up because you walked through a section without knowing there were rules that you can't walk through a section, right? It's just, and he's going into a situation where he can't run into his cell and hide. When he goes into his pod to hide, there are still all of those guys in there. And instead of having to only get along with one guy, you have the dynamic of a lot of people that can gang up on you. If the people are not happy that you got moved into their pod, then you're going to be living in hell. Honestly, it's not the benefit that people think it is. And Lowe makes it sound like he's playing golf. It's the exact same as it would be at FCI Phoenix or FCI Raybrook or any of those places. The only difference is that these guys are in dorm style living, and dorm style living is the launching pad. In fact, the other night, about a week ago, I had Will on, and Will talked about his time in prison. A lot of guys start in dorms and then they don't make it. First fist fight they get, all of a sudden now they're going to an FCI medium high, right? They get into fights there, or they get caught with drugs or anything like that there. Then the next thing you know, you keep climbing the ladder, because each time you get a write-up, your yard points increase. And once your yard points get to a point where, can't remember what the number is anymore, it's a magic number, but once you pass it, well, now you're going to play with the fellas, right? Now they're going to put you into a penitentiary, and the rules there, the punishments are a little different. Right? There are penitentiaries that have what they call no hands policies. And you hear that and you go, oh, thank God, no one's punching anybody. What they mean is you can't punch anybody. If you're going to fight, you need to use a weapon. And as sick and disgusting as that sounds, there are a lot of no hands policy yards. Everybody gets stabbed. So yes, he is absolutely.
What happens if you're on a no hands facility and you go ahead?
And you punch somebody, they're going to beat the snot out of you.
Is it worse than status murder?
Well, here's the thing.
It's like an environment that's going to breed more status.
Well, you have to ask permission at a USP to get into a fight. You can't just fight somebody. So you got to go in and talk to your shot caller and say, I want to hurt this guy, and here's why. And if the guy's not your race, he has to go and talk to the shot caller from the other race and see if they can take care of it that way. And if they can't, they'll determine which one of the two of you is wrong. And let's say the white guy's wrong, then they're going to beat the crap out of you. The white guys are. So it's a very kind of barbaric situation. However, those kind of things are a little different in yes, he was supposed to stay in New York, but they're very limited in the number of prisons that they can put him in New York. And apparently he would be closer to where he has to go back in court if they were to put him at Fort Dix. This is at least the BS narrative, and I don't know whether or not that's true. Honestly, they talk about the judge saying this and the judge saying that. The judge recommended that I went to such and such a facility every time. I never ended up there. The computation center in Texas makes those decisions. No one's really sure how. They don't always seem to make sense. But if you get in trouble and they could put you, 20 minutes from where you screwed up because your points went up, like they could have sent me to Herlong, which was literally 20 minutes from where I caught my case. Instead, they sent me all the way to Pennsylvania, right? They call it diesel therapy. They fly you all over the country and it breaks your spirit, man. The civil cases have already started. There are a bunch of them that are moving through the system already. There are a lot of systems going. Do they normally book them and don't post a mugshot? Yeah, I've never seen federal mugshots posted. The state ones always seem to be. Never been able to find mine. There aren't a lot of stuff that they leak out. However, I'll make you a promise. His prison ID is going to end up getting leaked soon, because that's a really easy thing to do. Every cop that comes in and works that unit that he's in can pull up his ID and take a picture of it with their phone, and that's going to be worth a crap load of money. And I promise you, a prison guard is going to sell his, nice, it's the fire department right there. They're going to end up selling the picture of his prison ID. That's going to happen, I promise you. Also, he may end up with that prison ID online anyway. It just depends. The BOP is really strange. You can look people up that were never actually convicted. Let's say Sean Combs beat this. He still would have a reg number forever. You still would have been able to look him up in BOP.gov. It's a very strange system, and it's one that got overhauled in 1952. Tell us that's not our building. The place we're filming is about half a kilometer from the fire department. So there's a big fire.
It's a parade for the firefighters.
Oh, it is?
All over.
Wow. So this is
Truck after truck after truck.
apparently this is a parade for firefighters. We'll get through it. We'll get through it.
The good news is nothing's on fire.
Yeah, that's a good thing. So do me a favor and smack that like button, folks. I'd like to stay in business and continue doing this content as it comes up. But I want to tell you, don't listen to all the people that say that he's going to be able to get run, says Mike Bragg. Run. I don't have to run anymore. I live in a different world these days. I'm an old man. Don't believe that all of he can do this program, and this program. He'll be out in 12 months. Johnny Scoville could tell you. I would call him from prison, once a month, maybe once every other month, depending on what I was doing in there. When I wasn't running and gunning, I called him every month. When I was running and gunning, I called him when I needed money. But he would say to me, when are you getting out? And the answer that every single federal inmate will tell you is, I don't have any freaking idea. I don't have any freaking idea. Yeah. So what you can do is you can look on that site and it will tell you he's getting out in May of 2028. It doesn't work like that. Yes, you're going to get halfway house time. And you could get a year of halfway house time. They have it within their purview to give you 1 year of halfway house time. I've seen guys do 25 years and get 6 months. I've never seen somebody get a year of halfway house. 6 months tends to even be rare. I got 6 months, but I swear to you, I went in there and I told him, I was like, man, I turned my life around. I haven't gotten any write-ups since this. Like I really was showing a lot of growth. And he said, yeah, they gave you 4 months. And I'm not joking. I knew this guy really well. I said, that's not going to work, bro. Right? My counselor, I was like, go back there and get me 6 months. I'm like, what is 2 more months? What difference does it make to any of these people? I'm like, I need to get out, man. Go get me my 2 more months. And he did. And he said to me, if you tell anybody that I did this, I promise you I will get you 90 days. I said, I'm not going to tell anybody. Now I'm telling everybody. But it's a very difficult thing to get 6 months off for halfway house. There were conditions that were put into his at sentencing. He has to wear an ankle monitor. I don't know anybody that left the feds that had to wear an ankle monitor. No one. I have never heard of that ever. So they're treating this guy differently, and I don't necessarily think it's better. To be honest with you, if he wasn't famous and he had 2 counts of the Mann Act, I don't think he would have got the time that he got. Now, If he had only been charged with the Mann Act, that would have been different too. There are guys that get caught for that and don't do time. But the judge has the ability to say, everything I just heard, I believe, even if you were found not guilty of it. It doesn't work like that in the state facilities. Each state's different, but most state judges can't take into account the Cassie Ventura beating because it had nothing to do with the Mann Act. In the BOP, in the Federal Bureau of Prisons, his pre-sentence report has got pictures of that beating in it. They're going to talk about everything he was accused of. If they can find two people that know you on the street to say, yeah, the guy did this, this, and this, it will get into your pre-sentence report. And the proof is in the pudding, right? They're saying he's recommended for RDAP, but there's nothing in his case that talks about drugs. Not the Mann case, but the other case in the PSR says this dude's a junkie, which is why they're recommending RDAP. But recommending RDAP doesn't mean you get the time off. I went to the BOP twice. Both times they recommended RDAP. Both times I turned it down, right? Because one was for bank robbery and the other was for guns. And neither of those were going to get the time off. Let me tell you how bad the fellas get pissed off. If you're in there taking up a slot from someone that could get the time off their sentence, they get really salty about that, right? They get really angry about that. And by the way, you can go through RDAP and they'll say to you, this is how much time we're giving you off. The year, they can give up to a year. So he could do the whole program and they could say, well, you're getting 4 months of halfway house and we're going to give you 2 extra months off for doing RDAP. It's not a lock that you get 12 months off. It is a rare thing. And like I said earlier, if you get that, if they give you the RDAP setup, then you have to do all of this crap on the street that you were doing when you were in RDAP. And it's a lot more difficult when you can get out and everybody knows rich and you can get any drug you want. You know, the guy, by all accounts, he's really fond of Tucci, which is a fairly wild substance. It's a bathtub drug that people put together. A lot of times it has ketamine in it. It always has enough speed to keep people awake.
I'm glad I missed that.
I'm glad I missed that too. I've read about it and it just doesn't seem like something I'd have a lot of fun doing. But it's like a bathtub version of a party drug. They call it pink cocaine and people go, well, there's coke and there's this and that. And they're not putting any coke in that, for real. I started looking up busts from around the country of people that get caught with it. And they're not testing that stuff and finding cocaine in it. A lot of times it'll be ketamine and it'll either be speed or it'll be MDA, right, which is like almost a precursor to MDMA. It's methyl dioxyamphetamine instead of or methylene dioxyamphetamine instead of methylene dioxymethamphetamine. But either way, yeah, I hope your headache gets better, babe. That sucks. Either way, this is a tough drug, and he got caught with a fat sack of it the night that before he got arrested. And the night before he got arrested, he went to New York knowing he was going to get arrested. He thought he was going to turn himself in. He had been working with his attorneys and everything else. But the grand jury indictment had come down. So he was flying into New York to turn himself in. He thought he would do I'll get right back out on bail and I'll do all of these things. But the night before, he had a freak off. When they went into his room, it showed all of the signs of that he was doing what he had been doing with Cassie and everybody else. And there was this Tucci, this 2C is technically what it is, the chemical name, but they call it Tucci. But he had a fat bag of Tucci up there, a lot of weird stuff in the room, including a butcher knife. Not exactly sure what that's about, but he had a butcher knife in there. So this isn't a guy that pumped the brakes even when life was banging at his back door. He knew he was about to get arrested and was living the exact same lifestyle as he was before. That's not a good sign, right? That's not a good sign. And, he claimed that, it's all good. There's a leak that has come out allegedly from somebody that worked with him in his teaching program. He was like the teaching assistant. Now, you don't know if any of this is real. I mean, I'll stipulate with that. But what they were saying was this guy said, no, nobody put a knife to his throat over any of that crap. What it was about was they were watching a Basketball Wives, and somebody was arguing with Diddy over his chair. This dude isn't going to do well. Everybody's going to push his buttons. Everyone would like to be the guy that say they beat the crap out of him, right? So this is going to be a really hard thing for him. If he was smarter, if he had talked to some real convicts, he wouldn't have asked to be someplace that was dorm living. But you have to understand that from him. This is a cat that hasn't done any time other than the time that he just did at MDC Brooklyn. So he knows he can do dorm living in his head, because dorm living to him is an isolation unit with 20 guys. That isn't going to be what he's going to run into at Fort Dix. This is going to be really big units, and guys in there are going to be gambling. They're going to be playing poker, right? They're going to be making wine. They're going to be dealing drugs. It's going to be every temptation that he could possibly have in his life are going to be there for him. And if he's got dough, he can go in day one and get dope. I mean, day one. He can walk in and get it without any cash. They will front him as much as he wants. That's how it works in prison. And then you better come up with the money. And I'm sure that he can come up with the cash. Whether or not he can move it around successfully, it's difficult to get on the phone and do that. So you got to do it through kites. You got to do it through visits. People come to see you. And even then, you have to talk to them and have them remember things like register numbers and people's names. Trust me, man, I did this, right? And it's a very difficult thing. I had a poker table and people were sending me money. And you get busted even if you don't do anything wrong. They call you in and go, you got money sent to you from a guy named Smith. Nobody in your family's last name is Smith. But we got 2 people here whose last name is Smith. Tell us what the hell's going on here. So they make it very difficult to get away with it, except at the top custody levels. Because at the top custody levels, they know that everybody's dealing drugs. And if people can't pay their bills, you'll get killed. You can get on a phone at Victorville and say, I need money sent here, and they're not going to come bust your balls about it. But they're not going to let you get away with that at an FCI. It's just not necessary in their mind, right? They really want to make sure that people are paying their bills at the top level, because if not, someone's going to cut your throat. At an FCI, if somebody doesn't pay their bills, they're going to check in, and they're going to get sent to the next yard. But I'm not kidding you. At Victorville, people get killed behind drug debts constantly. So they'll let you get away with a little more. You hear stories. When I was there, a dude walked in to talk to SIS, and SIS let him use the regular phone to get his debts paid, because it's a different world at a level 4 yard than it is at a level 1 yard. But he has a fence around them. It is not a camp. It has a lot of programming, right? But and guys would call it Camp Snoopy, right? Because it's a dorm. Most guys assume that dorms are your custody level is just a lot lower. It also means you got a ton of rats, a ton, right? People in there tell on each other constantly. The higher the custody level, the less chance of somebody telling. So if Diddy's in there doing anything, there are going to be people dropping kites on that fool daily. He's doing drugs, right? He's doing this. He got drunk last night. He's not in a pen, right? This is going to be a very ugly place to do time. And, his jacket, which is what you call your record in prison, right? His jacket just says that he was convicted of the Mann Act, which is transporting people across state lines. So anybody could go in there with that jacket and probably do time that's not that tough. But everybody isn't Diddy, right? These guys watch CNN. These guys watch Fox. These guys could have seen the Diddy documentary, right, on Paramount or any of the other stations. There's a really good chance that the fellas know as much about this case as everybody here listening to me. And they've all been waiting. They're hearing about him requesting to go to Fort Dix, and then they get in their feelings like, Fort Dix is a soft-ass place. That's why you want to come here. I'll show you a soft-ass place. I'm telling you, man, this is let the games begin. All of the talk and everything else before, now he's there. And now he's going to have to try to, it would be a lot easier if you were in a cell situation. You could probably take care of your cellmates. How many people does he know in there? That's a difficult question to answer. It really is. It's almost an impossible question to answer. If he knew, let's say he knew 5 guys on the yard, which would be incredible. It really would. But let's say he knows 5 guys on the yard. How much is that going to help you on a yard of 800 people? And are those 5 guys going to be in your unit? Because if the 5 guys aren't in your unit, it's going to really change things up too. But I spent a long time in the Bureau of Prisons, and I got transported all over the place and went through all of the the transfer centers and everything else. And I hit a yard once that I knew about 7 guys on, and that was shocking. And that was my world. That's where I lived. Normally, you might know 1 or 2 guys. 1 or 2 guys can't protect you on a yard. Nobody can protect you on a yard. I mean, that's the truth. Even if you're paying people to protect you, nobody can protect you. Because any guy that wants to go up and take his shot, you know what I mean? You'd have to have a bodyguard with you 24/7. When they say paying for protection, they don't mean like on the street where people are walking around with them. These are guys that go up and go, here's the deal. If you give me $500 a month, I'm not going to kill you. That's the protection, right? And they will say, if they're a big enough dude, they'll say, and I'll make sure no one else taxes you. That's not going to happen. I promise you. As soon as he pays the first person, there's going to be somebody else that's going to come up and go, yeah, you need to pay me too. It's a slippery slope, and it doesn't work out very well normally, right? It really doesn't. All of his money probably isn't going to help him a great deal in there. It's hard to get the money to the people that you want to get it to. But I'd be shocked if he doesn't get right back into the drug world. There's a lot of opiates in prison, and they're not going to be the ones that he likes, but it's going to make him feel very much like the ones that he did like. And you can get out of control really quickly because they will charge him ludicrous money. I've been on yards where a gram of heroin is $750, right? On the street, it's $30. And when you get it, you'll go, this doesn't look like a gram. And the standard answer is, well, it's a prison gram. Not exactly sure what the hell that means other than they ripped you off. But I don't know how many people he knows in there, but if he knew half of them, I don't know that this would make it a good life for him. And you'd have to assume that the people that are in there are willing to stand up for him. That's a courageous ass thing to do on a yard of 800 or 900 people, to say, I'm standing with Diddy. Man, you better be his brother, not his friend, because peer pressure is a real thing all over the world. It is a disease in prison. You know, if the fellas tell you that this dude isn't any good, you'll turn your back on your best friend before you'll go down there and get your ass kicked standing next to him. And I don't mean everybody, right? But inside guys will say, he's a friend of mine. I ride with that dude. If someone says that's my ace deuce, that means you'll go down and fight for him even if he's wrong. He gets caught doing something that he shouldn't have done, you're still going to go down there and have his back. But that's a rare thing. And it's usually guys that did a lot of time together, you know, cellmates that have lived together for 10 to 12 years, right? They'll build a relationship where I got your back, you got mine. I don't think anybody's lining up to say Diddy's my ace deuce, right? By all accounts, if you believe everything that they've said about this guy, he's molested 8-year-old boys. He's molested 15-year-old boys. He's drugged women and taken advantage of them. He's hung people off of balconies by their feet, women, right? And he's punched every woman he's ever been with, broken the nose of one of them. We saw what he did to Cassie Ventura. Guys that beat women or mess with kids are not usually very popular in prison. I would go out on a limb and say there's nobody at Fort Dix that hasn't seen the video of the Cassie Ventura beatdown. Maybe not the entire thing, but it was shown on TV a lot, the sections that they could get away with showing. Everybody in there knows who this dude is. Toss onto that the jealousy of, they're looking at him going, so he banged J-Lo, right? He did this, he did that, he had these parties, he did whatever he wants. There are guys that are just doing a lot of time that would just like to punch him on general principle, right? Not to mention infamy. The guy that beats him up is throughout the BOP, they're going to go, that's the dude who kicked Sean Combs' ass. And as stupid as this sounds, that's a thing in there. Ann from Massachusetts said, methinks Diddy is in for a world of misery. He is. He is. And even though this crime is not, it's not like kiddie porn, it's not one of the things that will absolutely get you beat up every day for the entire time you're in there and taxed and everything else. He's done some things already that are going to make him look really bad, even if he did it through his attorneys. To say, you know what, I'm not doing drugs, but everybody in there is, that's ratting. He's a rat. For him to say, I'm worried that the guards are trying to take me out. Now you've ratted on guards and you've ratted on inmates. So when you get to the next spot, you're way better off ratting on an inmate. They'll ship you somewhere where that inmate isn't anywhere around, and they'll try to, you rat on guards, that follows you everywhere you go. And they are not going to be too excited about taking care of you. Hey, formerly DJ Daddio. Hello, Tommy. I'm still with you, brother. Keep up the good work. Thank you, man. This is a friend of mine, people. And I know we're all friends, but this is actually a guy that I spent a lot of time talking to, and a good man. Hopefully your son is doing well as well. Got a great kid. Really does. But yeah, this is, I know a lot of people are bummed out. They would have liked to have had him go to Victorville. And I would have too. I'd have liked to have seen him go to Victorville. Two things about that. Number one, there is no chance with what he got charged with. By the way, 34 months. Man, you've stuck around through some BS. I love you, my man. 34 months. If that's not a record, it should be. But this isn't going to be, he could end up at a USP. The number of people who come in at camps, which is not where he's at, but there are guys who come in camps, catch an alcohol violation, go to an FCI, get into a fist fight, go to the next FCI, because you go from a low to a medium high. There are rare that it's just a high. Victorville has an FCI that's just a high, but most of them are either low, medium, or medium high. And the one he's in now, it is definitely not a higher custody level. Doesn't mean that anybody is getting anything different in there for privileges other than the fact that they don't have to stay in cells, right? That means TVs can stay on later, right? Because people can all see the TV. If you're in a cell and you don't have what they call a TV shot, your window's this big. If it doesn't face a TV, you can't watch TV after hours. The TVs never turn off, right? But in there, these guys can stay up all night long, which means it makes for a lot of noise and it makes for a lot of this stuff, right? I hope he's in there with a number of people that he has sent to jail or prison by setting them up and framing them through the years of addiction, and dudes that will want to get him in GP. Here's the crazy thing, Tara. As much as everybody thinks this is Camp Snoopy, he is in GP. So the people that he's going to be around, there are going to be killers in there, make no mistake. And you go, well, yeah, but they're all low custody level. You can also start at a USP and work your way down. So there are going to be guys in there that have murder beefs. You can't get past the low. You got a murder beef, you're not going to end up at a camp. But there are going to be people in there that have done some really, really nasty crimes. And Tara actually makes a really good point. I don't believe that 18,000 people that called in there, or the 3,300 that they interviewed or whatever, all have a real story. I think a lot of them are BS. But he's in a part of the country where he pissed off a lot of people. He pissed off gangs, right? There are people who are still bent out of shape because they think he killed Tupac. And there are people that are really bent out of shape from the East Coast, West Coast thing. There are a lot of cats that don't like this dude. I promise you. The number of people who think this guy's a predator and a piece of crap versus the people who go, oh, Diddy, cool. It's going to be a very high number of people that are going to hate him. Inmates tend to not believe the best about people. It's kind of a disease, right? They're going to believe the worst. It's kind of just how it happens, right? So, like I said, let the games begin. There's going to be general principle, general purpose. He's going to get smacked around. No, it is not the. So here we go. But let me do this one more time. There are camps that are satellites. When you hear the word satellite camp, it's on the outside of the fences. They are there so that if there is a riot or something happens, and the inmates who take care of the prison, cook, clean, do laundry, do maintenance, right, what they call CMS, there are at any given time hundreds of inmates that go to work every day. They cook the food that the inmates eat. They clean the clothes in the laundry. They put your clothes on you. You go in there and you go, those need to be hemmed. It's an inmate hemming them. All of these things are done by inmates. So if a riot happens, the prison shuts down, or you got to get all of the guards to cook. That's not going to happen. So they bring in the satellite camp, right? The guys from the satellite camp. My friend Bubba used to come on here all the time. I was at a FCI and he was at the satellite camp. And we ended up at a halfway house together. And he would say to me, oh, yeah, man, last January, you guys were locked down for 6 months. I had to come in there and feed and do all that. The camp is there to keep the prison running. Now, the camp very well may have tennis courts, right? Now, I was at an FCI medium high that had tennis courts, right? The recreation yard will have, you can play baseball, even USPs. They don't have tennis usually, but you can play baseball. They have all kinds of sports out there. Bocce. At a USP, they had bocce. That's a ball you could beat a guy to death with. But if no one ever does that, then bocce isn't going to get taken off the yard. And that they call it mafia marbles. The old Italians play it out there, and it tends to never get out of control. But there's all kinds of recreation stuff that will sound like he's on the street. It isn't going to be a real fun time for Diddy. I don't think he's going to be out there playing softball. I just don't think there's much of a chance he's going to want to be around guys with baseball bats. But that's everywhere. If he was at Victorville FCI, they have all of the same stuff. In fact, they even had at the FCI. I don't know if they did have pool tables there, but there are USPs that still have pool tables, right? Pool cues. It's what really it comes down to is how you live, right? He may never go to the yard. He may be so freaked out he doesn't go to the yard. He walks across it to eat. There are guys that do their entire time inside their unit. They're too afraid to go outside, and that we don't know how he's going to do his time, but we know that every time he has to come back in there and lock down, he's going to be surrounded by a bunch of guys. And every time those guys go to the yard, there are going to be people going, you let Sean Combs live in that unit? What kind of pussy lets Sean Combs live in a unit like that? You guys are all a bunch of, punks. Why are you not kicking the crap out of Diddy? If he was in my unit, I'd be stomping him to death. I'm telling you, man, this is a bad situation. He's going into a very tough situation. Here's my gut. My gut says that he's probably going to end up in a protective custody unit. I think that's probably in his future. I don't think that he's going to be able to walk mainline for 20 months or 24 months or whatever he's going to be able to pull off. And I think it's just a matter of time before someone decides that they'd like to slap the crap out of him and have that on their on the jacket. I'm the one that took out Diddy, right? I met the guy that beat up Jared from Subway when he was in Colorado at Florence. Now, Colorado, I was at a Supermax. There's a camp there that's got everything you could ever want and no fence around it. But the guys wouldn't say, yeah, I did time at that yard. They'd go, no, I was at the camp. I was at the United States Penitentiary there. But when I left, I got on the bus and then the airplane with the guy that beat up Jared from Subway. And I've known 40 people that have claimed they were the guy that beat up Jared from Subway. This guy actually had his write-up. And when we got to Oklahoma City, he showed me stuff on his computer, because that was one of the only times that TMZ actually flashed the guy's ID, and it had his prison ID number on it. Random people just started sending him money. I mean, he had so many people that sent him $5, $10. He was rolling in cash. And there are people that know that if they're the guy that beats up Sean Combs and that word gets out, they're probably going to make 10 grand, maybe 20. There are people all over the U.S. that will send that fool money. They'll find that back number and send that dude cash, right? This is a trophy for somebody in prison. You know, careful what you wish for. He wanted Fort Dix, he got it. I'm telling you, ask anybody that's done time, would you rather be in a cell or a dorm, and see what they say. Dorms are fist fight factories, because you don't have to just get along with one dick. You got to get along with hundreds of them, because the guy in the little unit next to you where there's 8 guys could be laughing until 3 in the morning. When the lights come on at 5, it's on and cracking. Guys don't like having their sleep messed with. And there'll be guys in there that don't do any programming at all. So they're not going to school. They're not going to any drug programs. They're not doing anything. They don't go to work. They sit around and get messed up on drugs and alcohol all day, right? So at night, they make a crap load of noise. And the guy in the next pod has to go to work at 4 a.m. It's a bad situation. I'm telling you, it's a bad situation. I would do a year and a half in a cell before I would do a year in a dorm. Dorms are just ugly. Hello, Joey girl. I hope you feel better. Sorry to hear that you were sick. Thoughts and prayers for you. It's a bummer. But we're going to hear a lot of stuff. Don't believe everything that you hear, right? I'm telling you right now, the people that go, well, he's getting a year off for RDAP. Man, do a little research on what that takes, what that entails. He is eligible for RDAP because his crime didn't involve a kid. Anything that didn't involve a kid, and they're going to let you do RDAP. That doesn't mean at the end of it, they're going to go, we're going to let you go home 12 months early. It doesn't work that way. In fact, usually they'll give you the heads up before you even start. They'll read the thing and go, yeah, there's no chance they're going to give you time off. Or if you say to the fellas, here's what my crime is, they're going to go, so you're in here rolling the dice on whether or not you're going to get 12 months? Because there are certain things that at least you're going to get time off. Ooh, Lyme disease. That's tough. I'm sorry to hear that, man. I had a friend that had Lyme disease. It's a tough thing to get. But yeah, you know, the fellows will go, then you need to quit. If you don't know that you're at least eligible for some time off, get out of the program, because you're taking away a spot from somebody that could go home early. They frown on that. That's not something that the fellows are going to dig. And in order for this fool to program, he's going to have to go and get into units. Like if you're in RDAP, you have to go and sit in a room and people are going to say to you, tell me about the worst experience that you ever had on opiates, right? Tell me the worst thing that you ever did. And Diddy's going to sit in that room and start talking about J-Lo and this and that. And God, man, I can't imagine being Diddy and being in a prison. You know, the one thing I would have paid anything to watch him walk into that unit. I would have cleared out my bank account to watch that fool like a fly on the wall. Because when Diddy walked in, all he had on him was what they call your roll, right? So it's your bedroll. It's just enough to put the sheets, you don't get a pillow, but you get the sheets, the blanket, 1 blanket, sometimes 2, depending on the yard. Like if it's really cold, you get 2 blankets. And a toothbrush that's about this big, and a tube of toothpaste that's made in India that tastes like battery acid. And then a little stick of deodorant that I'm not joking is that tall. That's all you got in life. But you got to walk holding all this by everybody. And even if you are a good dude that no one has ever heard of, everybody in there stops what they're doing and stares at you. But if you're famous in any way, if you're a guy that people know who they are, they're going to start catcalling that people were in there saying, ooh, I'd like to get a piece of that. I promise you, you got a real pretty mouth. They say things that are going to make you believe that everybody in there wants to rape you, because it's what everybody is most afraid of if they've never been to prison before. And the truth of the matter is it doesn't happen very often. Although I don't know about dorms, right? Spent most of my time in cells, and I spent most of my time on yards that didn't have people like Diddy on them. Like that's a dude that, I mean, bad things could happen to him. Now, the rumor is that he's already calling people and saying he's afraid of getting raped. I don't buy that. There are videos that have been made about it today. My experience in the Bureau of Prisons would tell me that if he got there at 4:30 in the morning, he can't make a phone call today, right? There's no chance. His PAC number isn't going to follow him over. If you look on BOP.gov, it still says he's at MDC Brooklyn. When that rolls over to Fort Dix, his PAC number will roll over, his money on his books, all of that will roll over. But sometimes it can take 48 hours. So people saying that he's already on the phone talking about it, maybe he is, man. Maybe there's some way he's getting those phone calls out. I don't know that I buy it. It just and I'm not running with stories these days that I can't at least back up in some way or another. I can tell you about RDAP. I know a crap load about RDAP, right? I got screwed out of it twice. I know how RDAP works. I know how they give out halfway house time. You do 13 years in prison. You know how many people I watched go in going, man, with my 6 months, I'll be out in like 2 weeks, you know? And they go in there and find out that they're going to give them 30 days of halfway house. They can give you whatever they want. And halfway house, according to the Bureau of Prisons and the mandate for why they put you in a halfway house is so that you can get into society and get your legs underneath you so that when you're done with that, you've got paychecks that you've been saving up and you can then get yourself a place to live. Sean Combs doesn't need any help getting a place to live, right? He's got the Star Island place. He's got the place out in California. He's big pimping as far as real estate goes. Diddy doesn't need any help with that. So they're not going to be as enthused to give this man a crap load of halfway house to get on his feet if he's got $250 million in the bank. My gut says he's going to do a lot more time than all of these people keep going. He's going to get out and this and that. Don't put any money on that, man. Don't put any money on that. I think he's probably going to get out in 2028. Who knows? If he doesn't, then I'm going to be, not only am I going to be surprised, but I'm going to feel like a lot of people got paid off because it won't make sense. His pre-sentence report is just as important as his case at this point because the case is done. It's over. Now that PSR is what follows him. And that PSR talks about stuff that he wasn't convicted of, a bunch of it. They probably interviewed Cassie. I mean, I'd be shocked if they didn't interview her for the PSR. They interviewed my exes. I'd be shocked if they didn't interview her, and probably a bunch of other people. Anyone that's willing to go and talk to them, if they call up and go, we're doing a pre-sentence report on him. If you hate him, you go, yeah, sit down, let's talk, right? You know, let's talk about him. You don't find a lot of people that chime in about what a great guy you are because they tend to find people that want to smut you up. So his pre-sentence report is going to be what decides whether or not they decide to give him more or less halfway house. And of course, there are different aspects. One of them is how well you do in prison. But I'm telling you, you can get punched in the face and they're going to say you were in a fist fight. I mean, you do this one and start defending yourself. Both of you are going to get a 100 series shot. 100 series shot, 27 days loss of good time. So half of your good time for the year is gone. And admittedly, I was a jughead, but the last time I was in prison, I was there 4 or 5 years. 4 years before I finally got my act together. In the first 3 years, I lost every day of good time. I blew all the good time I had for the entire sentence. And that's not uncommon at all. It's just once you're in that system, for instance, because of the drugs that he was on and that are in his PSR, he's getting random every month. Now he's going to go in there and people are going to say to him, yeah, they just do a random drug test. They randomly pick 2 or 3 guys from the unit once a week and they bring them out. You're good. He's not going to be randomly hit. Every random, he's going to come in. They call it the hot sheets. The drugs that he's on are opiates. They know what opiate guys are like. He's going to be on the hot sheets the entire time he's in there, which means he's going to do 12 piss tests a year minimum. And they're going to go in and piss test them and then come back 6 hours later and do it again. I got caught like that. Biggest bummer in the world. You're waiting for it, right? And they finally test you and you're like, now I can get high. And you go back to your cell and you get high. And they came in and said, hey, you need a drug test. No, I just took one, man. I just went down there. Yeah, they'd like to test you again. It's a wrap. He's going to have to deal with a lot of BS that he probably doesn't know is coming, especially because if you were in general population at MDC, you'd be surrounded by guys that would put you on game to exactly what you're getting into. So here's what's going to happen. Here's what you don't want to do. Here's what you want to do. Make sure you avoid this. Make sure you avoid that, right? There's no chance of that happening. And another thing that I think is probably in his future is a shot for compromising staff. Guys who have any level of fame, when he gets in there to sit down with a counselor or he works, if he decides to get a teaching position like he had at MDC Brooklyn, you're going to have a staff member who basically babysits you for 6 hours a day. And you end up with a relationship with these guys. And famous people always tend to say stuff like, man, if I were to have somebody send you $25,000, or if you were to take something and just make some calls for me to the street, he might find the right BOP guy. More than likely, I would imagine that the people they send in to talk to him are going to be sent in there because they don't think there's a chance in hell these people can be bought. And if they say, yeah, he offered me money to do X, Y, or Z, he's screwed. Not only do you have to be shipped, if you have a compromising staff shot, they have to ship you. And the amount of good time you lose is insane. And then they really end up, you're hated from that point on. It's like punching a cop. I did that. You punch a staff member, you're screwed for the rest of your sentence. I mean, they're going to do everything they can to make your life miserable. And this guy's got priors, right? We know that while he was at MDC Brooklyn and they did that raid, he did have a book and it had a hit list in there of people that he wanted to either threaten or bribe. He has done everything he can to interfere with the system. The story about somebody putting a knife to his throat is bullshit, right? His friend said that the knife was put to his throat after the guy snuck into his cell. He's in a 20-man dorm, there's no cell. Like the story doesn't even make sense, right? At all. And shanks don't show up in units like that, right? You can make a shank in a cell because you're in there alone and you're private as hell. The window's this big, right? So you can go in there and start cutting on your bunk late at night or whatever. You can't do that in the dorm. You're going to keep all the people up next to you, right? Now, where he's going, the guys that go off to the machine shop are the guys that bring back the knives, right? They call them friendlies. If you make them out of the right metal, it'll go through a metal detector. They call those friendlies. Sometimes they're made out of really stiff plastic, but these are the things that guys carry on the yard. They also stash knives all over the yard. Like if you hang out in one place, there's usually 2 or 3 of them buried. And you try to bury ones there that aren't going to set off metal detectors. It's one of the most bizarre lives in the world. I don't think the average person can wrap their dome around it, honestly, especially because what you see in movies is just all BS. You know what I mean? In movies, you figure that every single day someone's getting stabbed or raped, and it's just simply not the case. Prison is boring as hell until it isn't. And then once it isn't, it's terrifying. And that's prison. That's why the guy was talking about, Wes Watson. I mean, the guy's got 700 stories of violence from prison, and the amount of time he did is like, so there was just riots and stabbings and people getting their heads cut, you know, and he put 138 stitches in a guy. Said he cut him from his ear to his chin, 138 stitches. I don't care if you're stitching 4 levels down, 138 stitches from ear to ear, there's no chance. I watched the warden at Victorville get cut from his waist to his shoulder all the way down, and it was 72 staples. You know, he wouldn't have taken 138 stitches to fix that up. It's just these guys tell stories because they all want to be the baddest convict that ever lived. You know what I mean? Diddy ain't that guy, but he's going to be surrounded by a lot of people. They're tattoos, right? They're going to be people in there tattooing, and man, he's in for a treat. This is just a very different world. If he ends up in protective custody, can he still do the drug program? In theory, probably not, right? Probably not. Here's the problem with that. You would have to have a PC RDAP unit. They couldn't put you into RDAP as a PCer with other people who are in general population. And I don't think RDAP appears on too many PC yards. That would be news to me. I've never heard of a PC yard that would have the RDAP program. They're usually put in spoiled places. And by spoiled places, I mean, if you can live in a dorm and you can survive dorm living, guaranteed that place has got an RDAP, right? But most guys are going to crash out in dorms. Most people do not make it in dorms. It is very, very difficult to live and sleep in an environment that big. I went to Pahrump and couldn't make it 14 days, right? 14 days, I couldn't do it. There's the level of disrespect in a dorm is just beyond comprehension. And he's also on an East Coast dorm, which means that normally the segregation between races, if you're on the West Coast, that segregation is pretty etched in stone. You're definitely not going to get in a fight with somebody from a different race. At a dorm, guys will fight black and white, black and Mexican, whatever. It's very different. Dorm living is very, very different. And yeah, I think he's going to end up in protective custody. And by the way, if Sean Combs does something to get in trouble, let me explain to you what happens. They send you to the SHU, the segregated housing unit. After 72 hours, you're going to get your write-up. Within 3 to 4 weeks, you're going to see the disciplinary hearing officer, right? The disciplinary hearing officer is going to ask you what you did wrong. You can call a lawyer. They have to be a staff member. I've only seen one ever where the person actually fought for somebody, and it was me, but it was a rare occurrence. Normally, they don't do anything. And once they sentence you, once they go, okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to lose 27 days of good time. We're going to take away your store for 9 months. You're going to lose your phone for a year. I knew a guy who wasn't getting his phone back until 2030. And that's when I was still in prison. So they can just keep stacking these things forever. And then they say, and Grand Prairie is going to determine whether or not you're going to stay on this yard or not. And SIS will talk to Grand Prairie. You will wait sometimes 6 to 8 months before they ship you. So the whole process can take almost a year of you sitting in the shoe at the prison you're at. Then they send you to the next one. And when you hit the yard, you've got to bring with you what's called your lockup order, right? Because the lockup order has 2 sections. One says, what is the offense? And they fill it out. The other says, requested protective custody. If you carry that lockup order into the next one, then you're in really bad shape. It's not a good thing, right? It is not a good thing. No, I'll tell you the truth. Here you go. And I'm sure that you're just being kind. My insights into prison are crazy, scary, spooky, hilarious. Have you always been an exceptional storyteller, or is that a skill that you developed in order to crime better? It's an interesting way to put it. Or to survive in prison. Well, here's the thing. I'm 6'2", right? About 220, and I was usually about 6'2", 235, which put me in a section of the prison that was probably able to take care of himself. And the crimes that I went away for were bank robbery and gun running. Neither of those crimes tend to piss off the general public. So didn't really need to worry about that in prison, although I certainly talked my way out of more fights than I actually got into, right? So that was, no, we're good. But what I will say is this. I was born with certain deficits. My ability to get my thoughts down onto paper are not up to snuff. And I think that I developed my ability to speak as a way to try to avoid having to admit that. I could talk to a teacher for a really long time and usually get some kind of love out of it. So as I got older, I worked as a professional public speaker for over a decade. Went around the country and worked on that. So that's probably where that comes from. Did it make my crime better? Probably. There were certainly some things that I did that my ability to talk probably made easier. As far as surviving in prison, I'm not going to have the same problems that Sean Combs is going to have in prison, right? I also wasn't going in there being famous, which is a good thing. Alrighty, people. Now, you know what? A little sarcasm never hurt anybody. And honestly, I mean, you're not going to hurt my feelings. Listen, with no disrespect to anybody here, I love all of you. But I've made a decision in my life of how I'm going to live it. And these days, I'm sure I'm stepping on people's feelings all over the place, right? I don't look at my emails anymore, period. I know that that's a really harsh thing. I do have some people that look through them in case someone is screaming for help. There are places that we can send them. But the way that I did this channel for a long time invited a level of stress into my life that at this age and at this stage of my life, I'm just not going to do ever again. So I'm a little less pissed off by things that people say like that.
This aggression won't stand, man.
This great reference, babe. That's a good one. That would be the Big Lebowski. This aggression won't stand, man. Thank you. Well, anyway, I appreciate that. And well, I'll be doing both of those things. And honestly, it didn't offend me. I didn't view it as a tough question. And to be honest, and I hope it doesn't bum anybody out, I intend to interact with people more in the chat than I did today. The Diddy stuff, I kind of needed to roll through. Here's why. Because these are the only videos that I actually make cash on, right? The Diddy videos, people really kind of get excited about me doing. So I didn't do the big hellos. I will be doing that. I will be interacting with people in the chat. I love all of you. I'm not interacting outside of the chat. And I'm sure that bums some people out. But it's going to be what keeps the boat going for another decade or so. If I tried to do it in the way that I used to, I don't think I'd make another year. And the farther away I am from the United States, the more I realize that there's a lot about you do interact with me are different. There are a lot of things that are very different between where I live and where I used to. And the longer I'm away, the more I realize that it's just a lot of negativity and hate in my home country. It bums me out, to be honest with you. I love America, but I dig it. I dig the non-programming. I dig not being told what to think. It's a really unique thing. I'm pretty happy. But I'm also going to be doing a show tomorrow night, not only here, but over on Cults and Crims, where that name's probably going to change, by the way. But as of now, it's Cults and Crims. You should head over there and check it out. It'll be a lot more fun. There's way more interaction with us in the audience over there. It'll be me and the Quibster and doing our thing. So hopefully we'll see all of you over there. And between now and the next time I see you, don't believe everything they tell you about Diddy. I promise you a lot of it's BS. But I would say within the next 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to see some fun coming out of there. It's probably not the kind of place that is that he's going to be able to blend in. I have a feeling that if he could, and you could probably hide for. Why did I make her run for the border? Well, let me explain to you the concept of this, because since it'll be fun to. You can run for the border of Mexico. You can't run for the border where I live. That's almost impossible to make happen. And what I mean by that is I wasn't coming here to go on vacation. What I was coming here to do was to live here. I'm moving permanently to this country. So I had to deal with my past and with all of the things that I have done. I left the United States of America, Nikki, because the troll world, right? People go, it's trolls, who cares? Well, when they show up at your house or they begin to really harass you in ways, they call the people from Customs and Border to tell them I'm smuggling children. And these people actually have to come out to my house and research that and not research people that are smuggling children. The insanity that was brought on by a lot of those asses made me no longer want to be in my country. That had a lot to do with it. And the other thing is, I am really fond of the ocean. This is a beautiful place if you dig the ocean. But I wasn't running from squat. I was running to Ecuador, not from the United States of America. But I'm not going to lie to you, every single day, something happens that makes me a little bit happier that within about, 28 days, I'm going to be Ecuadorian. Well, not officially. You got to go 2 years after that. But we're just waiting on our visa, which is going to be in probably within the next month, at which point it's a wrap. I am going to be a dual citizen, but I'm not going to lie to you. I prefer one of them over the other these days.
God, me too.
And without any disrespect to anybody leaving comments, without a problem, there's at least one comment a day that makes me go, and that's why I made a run for the border. God bless you. And to the rest of you, I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Between now and then, put a little love in your heart. Or don't. I'm Tommy. God bless. We'll see you on Cults and Crims tomorrow night. Have a good one. Bye-bye.